a lot. Sure, there's variations of what we saw him build, but always the core, the Corsair is there. Jaedong, you know, when we talk about this player, you mostly think about his dominance as a Zerg. They call him the Tyrant, but you think about the rivalry between Jaedong and Flash that was always between them two. We'll see them place off against each other a little bit later.
So this is going to be a PvZ. Jaedong can do anything with Zerg, so it's very hard to predict the style. Sometimes he's aggressive, sometimes he's passive and reactive. BISU is going to have to open up and try to force Jaedong into a position and play from there. By the way, BISU is some of the strongest mid-game PvZ you will ever see. His builds are so tight, and PvZ builds are actually quite hard to execute. You have to know all the placement perfectly. Everything has to be timed out very finely. And this guy is the person who just figured it out. We are going to go ahead and go now into this game. Our CVP, Jaedong versus BISU. Let's do this. All right, introducing our players here in the bottom right, the Protoss player BISU. His opponent in the exact opposite corner of the map is our Zerg player Jaedong.
One thing we haven't touched upon too much with Remastered, too, actually, and I want to highlight this because I saw BISU spamming P in the chat, which initially led me to panic, thinking maybe he wants a pause, but the reality is he's actually just holding down P because he's using the original hotkey setup to make a probe with P. Now, if you're a StarCraft 2 player, you might think, well, that's really far on the keyboard. E's a much better option, and until now, custom hotkeys were not an option, but now with Remastered, of course, you can rebind any unit, any command in the command card to any hotkey you'd like. So you no longer have to, if you're a new player in Brood War, have to get used to going from E to P, or for making a Marine, use M, for example. You can actually make it whatever you like, whatever's most comfortable for you. That's another cool thing in StarCraft Remastered. That's a new addition.
Yeah, they basically modernized it. I mean, you have to realize the game was so, 19 years ago, we didn't even have esports, you know, and a lot of these original hotkeys were basically set up the same way if you're using hotkeys when you're coding something. Right?
Yeah.
You know, cut, paste, you know, all these different little bindings that you had set up. But yeah, it's basically been just cleaned up. So on this map, we already see the gateway out here at the entrance. Now, that's for multiple different reasons. A, the gateway being close to the front means the Zealots can get to the Zerg's expansions more quickly. It also functions as a wall, so that as the Protoss tries to lean on the Zerg to be a little bit aggressive, you could make another forge there, get a cannon up, and basically you got a free expansion then. And this, especially with BISU, seems to be the way he really wants to play this matchup. Forge expanding was very popular and has been for several years now, but it seems like going gateway first, getting the Zealot out here, and trying to get in the Zerg's face is the new approach.
Yeah,
and it's always been around. We've seen this build before, but it seems to be much more trendy.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about in our first series about, you know, a Zealot can do so much for you. It's just how you use it. And let's see what happens here, because we're cross spawns on Eye of the Storm here, and that means that for Jaedong, the aggressive options, busting the front with Hydralisk, for example, going to be a little bit tougher. It takes some longer time to get across the map. So BISU will be able to hold onto the space and research Storm a lot faster. So Jaedong may take a different approach, maybe take a greedy economic build or a tech play over just going for that bust at the beginning. And as you were highlighting earlier, which is so true, especially when you look at his recent play in the ASL, Jaedong is unpredictable. He will be the guy who surprises you with the bust, even in cross spawns, because you don't expect it.
Okay, so he actually only sent one Zealot out. The other Zealot's here just in case a counterattack, for instance, comes in. The one Ling has come in here and scouted and identified what the build is. The Forge should be started shortly here. You pretty much can't fast expand to that at Forge. There's very few situations where that would even be feasible, because you really do need a cannon to hang on here. Now the Zealot's out. Now note, 2 probe hits and 2 Zealot hits also kill a Ling. And he goes behind the minerals and parks right there. Now it's hard for the Lings to get in the proper surface area. You can also even go in the Nook in the mineral patch. And BISU's controlling this pretty damn well. And the trick is he's keeping the Lings back while he's getting his own base up. Ideally, he'd want to get drones. I don't think Jaedong's going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Zealot here is eventually going to get pushed back. Got 4 kills, so pretty decent. The micro from Jaedong, though, really good. Does pull back the weakened Lings, knowing exactly how many hits it takes to kill that final Zealot. Will get that final shot there without losing the Ling. A few more Zealots moving across the map, though, and the question is, did Jaedong make enough Lings? I think the answer is yes. Already grabbing the surround on this first Zealot. Not going to get into the position he wanted with it, but good micro here by BISU, actually, pulling it back, swapping positions.
So BISU basically identified, okay, he's not making that many more Lings while my Zealots out here. He probably saw a drone or 2 hatch and decided to send the Zealots out. But the Overlord did spot these Zealots coming out, so maybe a bit of an overextension here by BISU. It's tricky, though. I mean, as long as they're making Lings, you're basically fine with it. Because you just want to make sure that you can get up what you need to do. You want to get your +1 attack. You probably want to get a Stargate up. You don't have to. There's other builds you can do, but you want to get your tech up.
Yeah.
Protoss have to have a lot of gas to beat a solid Zerg player, and they need to have all these upgrades and everything. Zerg can rely on Hydras, for instance, or Lings with speed and do a lot more. So the Protoss has to play a very smart chess game.
And that's why walling off is so important. That's why you see the rush quickly to Corsairs. It can allow you to control vision on the map at the very least. Then the Corsairs scout pushes across. You limit the Overlord count, which means obviously the Zerg will have to remake those. It costs more money. Won't be able to have the Hydra count he wants to pressure with. And then later on you tech straight up to the Storm so you can have that AoE. You don't spend a lot of gas on units like Dragoons, for example, because they're not very effective on the opposite wall when you're defending. And so the Zerg pressures with the Hydras. The Dragoon's just not very effective against that. So you put all your gas into tech instead. And as you mentioned, it's just so important he builds that up. Large Ling count here. He's hoping perhaps we see a little Zealot run by or a poke out here and he could trap and surround, but I don't think BISU is going to take the bait. Sticking back here, keeping the tight wall as the Corsairs come out. Remember, this is the style. The Corsairs coming out from the Stargate that BISU made and popularized. This is his build. And about 10 years later, he's doing it here in front of this huge audience.
So here's the way that this works, because it seems obvious, but it was so hard to pull off in the early days because people were trying to do this on one base originally. In the early days of Brood War, if you tried to fast expand, a lot of people wouldn't even want to play against you anymore because they viewed it as a form of cheese. Like, there's no way you can just make a cannon here. This is the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
Obvious, because it's so hard to pull off a fast expand when people were still unpacking what RTS was. And then eventually people started to prove, no, actually I can do this basically every time. You can even know I'm going to do it and I'll still get away with it. And that gave viability to Corsair DT, or Corsair DT is one of them, but there's also Corsair Zealot, Corsair Reaver. And so the idea is you keep making Corsairs. Obviously the Overlords are very important for Zerg. If you take out all the Overlords, they can't produce. The Zerg has to spend enough of their gas and minerals stopping the Corsairs that they end up with a little bit of a weaker ground army. And oh my God,
he found
this
the
is
three.
bad.
This
he
is
hit
so
the
bad.
Overlords.
But they got found. He was looking for them. He's like, where are your Overlords? I checked the entire map, saw the one in the top left and said, this is not enough Overlords on the map. Finds the Overlord depot, if you will. And now this is disastrous for Jaedong. He's going to lose so many of them. Sure, it takes a long time, but now he has to spend money to reproduce them.
Okay.
He already finds himself supply blocked, 45 of 44.
I believe the Spire should have finished. If not, he's not going to be able to make any air units. Oh my
Okay, he
God.
just made the Overlords. He should be able to make them now if he's got the larva.
This actually throws the Zerg's tempo off hugely. That was a risky play there by Jaedong. There are things you can do to prevent that, but he kind of went a greedy route. He just hid the Overlords because it's a tough place to get to. Now notice the wall in here.
So important.
The Zealots, if that wall wasn't set up like that, the Zealots probably could have engaged that more effectively. But Jaedong is doing a great job coming down here with these Lings. +1, by the way, for the Zealots is not done yet.
And he's got the surround here with the Ling speed. Just kind of trying to maximize the surrounds every time. Never going to take an engage that isn't the perfect surround. Just trying to grab as many Zealots as he can. And look at this by BISU too, realizing this is the exact moment he can turn. And we'll push these Lings back. But he got a huge lead because he killed those Overlords. That meant so many more larvae had to be spent by Jaedong. So much money. When the 3 Overlords go down, that's 300 minerals down the drain. Larva time loss. And he couldn't build the Scourge fast enough, obviously, while he was supply blocked. We're going to see an Archon here made, actually, a little bit surprising. To have
Drink
this
it in, nerds.
So beautiful, though.
Remastered Archon. Oh, hold up. We're just not catching this. The Zealots actually breached that location.
Yeah.
The Lings were not high enough in number. And if you can just take out some of these workers, that's going to be huge.
I mean, it looks like it wasn't quite a tight wall. Really important that Hydra survives there.
Yeah, you basically can plug the little holes with the Hydras or with a Ling and end up holding off a lot of Zealots with a little. Originally, Zergs just took a base and threw down some sunken colonies, and eventually the Protoss got so good at busting them that it's almost like when you see a Protoss or a Terran wall, and the Zergs need to figure out their own wall-ins there to keep that safe too, because the Zerg have to have 3 bases throughout the game.
It looks like he wants to bust this stasis. Like, he's bringing the Archons here. I don't know if this is going to work. The wall has been replaced. He's going to back off. He realizes, okay, there's too many Hydras. I don't have enough range, and he's got the tight wall. Going to look for a different opportunity. Sorry to interrupt your point there, but I thought he was going to completely commit, but we'll redirect now to the natural.
Well, even forcing him to make some defenses here and there is pretty good. Now note, he wants to then put pressure over here at the natural, because Zerg has to be honest when they're defending this. You can't just defend the third base. A lot of even very good players will over-defend the third, and Protoss just flips on where they're attacking and busts into the second, wins the game there as well. And so, Protoss continues to power up. This is a very modern way to play PvZ, relied on the Zealot Archon, getting Storm later on. Eventually, Protoss is going to take a third, though.
Yeah, Scourge here looking for hits. Every time the Corsairs shift position, he can find an opportunity. But over here, Hydra's overextending and will lose one. But he does pull back. I do want to highlight as well that Storm is definitely going to be on the way. He does secure this third base, and he has the Zerg playing defensive. The only thing that for the Zerg that's across the map, of course, is this Scourge force, which is finally warded away here. And he's just looking for cleaning up the air right now with all these Scourge. But the ground army reigns supreme. The only way that Jaedong takes a fight against the ground army is when he's holed up in his wall, which means the Protoss can now get on even bases, which the Zerg never wants. 3 base versus 3 base with the Psy Storm. So now, great position here for BISU.
The number of hatches BISU Jaedong has here, this is a threat. Even with good Psy Storm, the Zergs in modern Brood War have gotten so good at controlling their Hydras, dodging storms, and whittling down the Protoss army until eventually they crack. We could also see drops utilized here. It's quite a travel distance.
Ooh, the Storm, though.
First, he's going to come in and try to assassinate the Templars. And from there, he'll do a full-on engage.
Yeah, there is Psy Storm available, as we know now. +2 should be ready soon, but the cannons on the high ground will buy so much time. This is a very aggressive assault for Jaedong. He's hoping to grab some of these slower units, possibly some Templar on the retreat. It does not happen. We're going to see a massive lurker morph over here, but he needs to make sure those are ready when he goes to the frontal assault.
He might be doing a drop here.
Looks like it.
He's going to force some attention over here in the center of the map. And he can do I believe it's going to be a drop. Okay, it looks like he's setting up for it. A big lurker drop here, taking out the Scourge, can hit the gateways and possibly even an expansion. Now, no, Protoss seems to be fished out here.
And remember, he cleaned up the Corsairs. His Scourge knows he has vision control. He knows this is never going to be scouted. Right. He cleaned up those Corsairs early. That's why he made so many Scourge. So this is just completely unknown to BISU right now.
He's gearing up to hit BISU right when the macro engine's kicking in, right when he's got the third base up and running, and all of his gateways are set up, and he's getting all that tech and hitting at this moment with the army out in the middle of the map. I think that Jaedong has successfully deceived BISU here.
And he sees it with the middle of the map. He sees it with this small group of Hydras that the army is not at home. This is his opportunity. And to come into the main base here, has some Scourge to support this so he can clean up the Observers. Observers, of course, key in dealing with the lurker drop. The cannon is going to be the primary target. He wants to remove that detection. Catching some of these warping in High Templar as well. A big problem. And this production, if it gets deleted, to bring it back into the game.
The probes are trying to evacuate. BISU scrambling now to get into his main. As he's going back there, we see a second attack gearing up to try to hit that third base.
Another Observer sniped. He's got 2 more coming back. He needs those desperately to eventually clean up these lurkers. If he loses them, this may just end up doing too much damage. And finally, Jaedong regains control of the map.
As you can see, he's coming in now.
Observer.
He gets the Observer. The Observer, a very brittle unit, and now he's going to hit from the front here. BISU is getting pulled apart. I do not know if he has enough Psy Storm in the right places to clean this up.
I don't even know if he has a Robo left anymore.
There's one Observer moving now down to the main.
Okay, he's got that one
actually
there.
handling this pretty damn well considering.
Yeah, we'll survive with this Observer. We'll finally clean this up. BISU does survive. Wants to hit before these lurkers hatch. Looking for this one opportunity. Storms go down. Wants to get the surround on these lurkers. We'll have more storms here once they finish.
He may try to storm the egg. Sometimes he can actually do that, but it looks like he deemed it. It's not enough time.
No spots on the lurkers. He had to burrow them immediately, and they're all going to go down here once the Observer comes across. Still, so many units rolling across.
This attack is insane. It seems like BISU is just barely hanging on. But this third base here for Protoss is actually fairly naked. There's not really that much here to defend.
But he could get trapped here, Tasteless, in between the cannons and the charge zealots, or speed zealots, I should say, coming across the backside.
I believe there's even a drop over here at the natural. I'm not sure how many probes overall BISU is going to have when this is all said and done.
Okay, good block here with the probes. The cannons bought enough time. The observer survives here, but as you say, I think there is a drop at the natural. This isn't even fully dealt with, in fact. He just isn't focused. He's dealing with the natural attack. Jaedong is just hitting everywhere at once. But when the dust settles, will he have enough units to deal with the counterattack? Because BISU is losing economy, but he's not losing army units.
That's very true. And if you look at the supplies, Jaedong is actually down a lot in supplies, so it's looking scary for BISU. But if BISU stabilizes, how on earth is he going to end up? Is Jaedong going to end up with a fourth base? I don't see it. It's all going to come down to the next series of attacks here from Jaedong.
Yeah. So with the observers cleaned up, he's going to need those. Those are at a premium right now. The army is much larger. Now remember, back at home with these three bases, BISU struggles to attack because the tight wall's still there, right? He's going to have lurkers on the high ground. He's got the sunken colonies ready. But it's the fourth base that you mentioned that's the bigger problem. He'll never be able to take that reasonably with this Protoss army on the map. Look at this, corralling the Hydras here with Psy Storms. He has taken control. He has a superior ground force. Jaedong desperately trying to buy time. He knows he killed a lot of probes. But getting a fourth, that's the issue.
You know, it's crazy. I think actually BISU stabilized. And you know what? There's overlords there. There was no drop there. I thought there was perhaps a lurker drop or something over there like that. But BISU starting to push out, and Jaedong folds. GG, nicely done there by BISU.
Yeah, I think that was the crux too, just no kills on the probes at the natural. We didn't have a closer shot of that, so we couldn't know. But you had to assume perhaps that when probes are going down, but the supply was showing not only ground supply lead, but he had the probes alive. He knew he could stabilize, move out to attack. I think you said it best when you said, all things considered, the response there from BISU was just so brilliant. Jaedong kind of put all of his eggs in that Overlord basket, decided to go in for the attack, and when it didn't do enough damage, he lost all of his units. They were units he could have used to maybe control the ground army, but he wanted to go for massive eco damage. When it didn't do enough, he didn't have any defense there for the counterattack.
You know, if BISU had made one misstep, that damage would have snowballed out of control. Jaedong went for a very specific timing that is intended to end the game.